Make America Great Again. Travel back in time with me to the beginning of America. When the salt air of Narragansett Bay hung heavy over the timbered house as John Tefft stepped out onto the damp soil of Pettaquamscut. It was the mid-1600s, and in the colony of Rhode Island and Providence plantations, survival wasn't just about the harvest, it was about navigating the delicate, often dangerous balance between the English settlers and the powerful Narragansett people. John wasn't a man of soft words or easy leisure. His hands were calloused from the plow and the heavy lifting of masonry, the very trade he was teaching his sons, Samuel and Joshua. As he looked across his acreage, he felt the weight of the legacy he was building. Rhode Island was a place for the otherwise minded, a refuge for those who didn't fit the rigid mold of the Massachusetts Bay Puritans. John valued that independence, but he knew it came at a price. One evening, while the family sat near the hearth, the air felt different. The usual sounds of the forest, the rhythmic chirping of crickets and the rustle of the wind, seemed muffled by a tense silence. "The rumors from the north are growing," Samuel said, cleaning a rusted tool by the firelight. "King Philip's men are restless. They say the peace won't hold through the winter." John looked at his son, then at his wife, Mary. He thought of his neighbor and friend, the ironsmith who had recently fortified his own stone house. In Rhode Island they lived on the edge of two worlds. John had always maintained a cautious respect with the local tribes, trading goods and sharing the land, but the tides of war were rising beyond his control. As the conflict known as King Philip's War eventually ignited, John found himself in a position few would envy. He was a man of the land, a father who wanted nothing more than to see the Tefft name take root in the rocky Rhode Island soil. Yet the chaos of the 1670s spared no one. In the story of the Teffts, there is often a blur between the historical record and the legends passed down through the generations. Some say John stood as a pillar of the community during the Great Swamp Fight. Others whisper of the agonizing choices the family faced when the lines between neighbor and enemy disappeared in the smoke of burning settlements. Years later, as the sun set over the rolling hills of South Kingstown, the Tefft lineage had done more than just survive. It had defined the region. The stonework John and his sons laid became the foundation for a family that would spread across the colony, from the shores of Westerly to the bustling docks of Newport. John Tefft didn't leave behind gold or grand monuments. He left behind a name etched into the deeds of the Narragansett country and a spirit of resilience that mirrored the rugged coastline he called home. Every stone wall that still winds through the Rhode Island woods today carries a piece of that story, the story of a man who planted a family in the wilderness and watched it grow into a state. In the quiet corners of Rhode Island history, the story of Joshua Tefft stands apart from his brothers, not just for the tragedy that eventually found him, but for the life he chose to build beyond the stone walls of the English settlements. While his father, John, and his brother, Samuel, were busy taming the rocky soil of Pettaquamscut, Joshua's heart wandered toward the deep, ancient woods of the Narragansett. It was during a season of trade that Joshua first met her. To the English, she was often unnamed in the records, known only as a daughter of the Narragansett, but to Joshua she was the reason the frontier felt like home. They met where the fresh water of the streams met the salt of the bay. He was a man who preferred the silence of the forest to the rigid sermons of the colonies, and she was a woman of a people who had lived in harmony with that silence for generations. Their romance wasn't one of grand gestures or written letters. It was found in shared knowledge. She taught him the language of the seasons, when the herring would run, how to find the heart of the cedar, and the medicinal secrets of the wintergreen. When they married, Joshua did something nearly unthinkable for a colonial son of his stature. He left the English civilization behind. He didn't just love her, he respected her world. They built their life in a wigwam among her kin. For a few brief years, the tensions of the growing colonies felt a world away. Their romance was defined by the firelight of the Narragansett winter camps and the soft rhythm of daily life, grinding corn, fishing the Great Salt Pond, and the birth of their son, Peter. In those woods, Joshua wasn't a settler, and she wasn't a savage. They were simply a family, a bridge between two cultures that were rapidly hurtling toward a collision.